Usain Bolt, born on August 21, 1986, is a retired Jamaican sprinter. He is an 8-time Olympic gold medalist and an 11-time world champion. He is also the only sprinter to win the Olympic 100-meter and 200-meter titles at 3 consecutive Olympics, 2008, 2012, and 2016. Stands 6'5" and weighs 207 pounds. He holds the world records for the 100-meter dash at 9.58 seconds and the 200-meter dash at 19.19 seconds. Widely regarded as the greatest sprinter of all time, becoming the first person to win gold in both events. Bolt is coached by the legendary Glenn Mills and sponsored by sports company Puma. Initially interested in cricket, Bolt's coach recognized his exceptional speed and guided him towards sprinting. At 15, Bolt won a junior sprint title, completing the 200-meter dash in 20.61 seconds, making him the youngest ever to do so. Legendary coach Bud Winter went to Jamaica for a series of seminars back in 1966. In attendance was a young man from Kingston named Glenn Mills, would later become Usain Bolt's coach after the 2004 Athens Olympic. Glenn Mills is a big believer in Bud Winter training methods, especially the relaxation part. His main emphasis was on developing a philosophy. We all read the same books, study the same courses, get the same internet research info, but the important thing is how we use this knowledge in the circumstances we're in. The coach is measured by results, not by knowledge. The info must be adjusted to get the results, as it is important to be specific to the athlete's needs. Athletes have various deficiencies, so treat them differently. He was keen on getting sprinters to develop technical skills from early age. Work on, for example, arm drive movement 6 times a week. Because sprinting is a precision event, every movement is crucial. If one area is negative, it will have a serious overall impact. If ground time over 1 stride is improved, over 46 strides, it's huge. He's a believer in starting speed from day 1. If you don't need it, it won't help. So he doesn't perform volume and mileage for months at the beginning. It will have a negative effect. If a muscle runs slow for months, and suddenly you want it to change gear, it doesn't work. From day 1, he'll also include mechanical drills, starting drills, and games involving response. Talking about the 100 meters, if a final time is slow, don't attack the wrong area. Look at all components, from start to drive, to acceleration, to top speed, maintenance, and deceleration. Analyze each stage, and you'll find weaknesses. You may start giving speed endurance work when the problem lies in the max speed phase. Glenn Mills performs tests on every 8 weeks, and his only overspeed work is with a gentle slope. He also hates parachutes as they fly all over the place. On a short to long plan, I like the short speed sessions on Monday, as it can trash your CNS where you need up to 72 hours to recover. On a long to short plan, the speed and special endurance are early in the week, with the short speed on Friday and 2 days rest on the weekend. For Usain, the key numbers for workouts in seconds are 3 to 7 seconds, 15 seconds, and 40 seconds. Usually, those numbers translate to 30 to 60 meter, 150 meter, and 325 meters. So generally, those are the key distance I like to work with. Speed endurance and pure speed have to work hand in hand. People tend to separate them and do speed endurance as a single component, and then do explosive speed training as a single component. My philosophy is that the two should run concurrently, and that coaches should try to develop a balance. To keep the athlete fresh and explosive, the load has to be slightly reduced as you go to high velocity and high quality performance in training. The work that is done in the last part of the competitive period leading up to the major competition. A greater degree of rest is required for recovery and explosive training must be greatly reduced to maybe once or twice per week. And a recovery should not be less than 36 hours. 48 hours would be even better. A lot of coaches feel that if you reduce the workload too much in terms of training time, the athlete will lose something. But that is not my experience. Usain is an extremely gifted athlete. When Glenn Mills started working with him, one of the things that stood out like a sore thumb was his poor mechanics. He was running behind the center of balance. This resulted in a negative force against his forward drive, and it was affecting other areas. For example, his body position put pressure on his lower back, and there was a continual shift of his hip girdle and a pull on his hamstring. He was continually having hamstring problems, and the assessment was that one of the things that contributed to it was his poor mechanics. The first task was to get him to run with his upper body core in line with his center of mass, or a forward lean of somewhere around 5 to 10 degrees. We set about doing drills, then we took videos of his workouts and broke them down on the screen in slow motion to show him exactly what he was doing. We would draw diagrams and show him the position that we are working to achieve. Part of his poor mechanics was because he was not able to hold the sprint position during maximum velocity running, so we had to do an intense program to develop his core strength. Coach Mills is a technical coach in the sprints, focusing on small changes to get big results. Sprinting technique has been one of the main reasons for Usain Bolt's domination in the sport of track and field. To improve sprint mechanics, Coach Mills not only developed Usain Bolt's strength, but improved his sprint technique. Coaches have to continuously react and replay and redo the drills, getting the athlete to run over and over to break habits. Usain Bolt's training included a long-term plan and took 2 years of reworking his technique before the 2008 Olympics in Beijing, his breakout as the fastest man in the world. Executing basic sprint mechanics with precision is the key to transforming technique. Proper practice, repeated over time, will yield improvements in performance. Sprint drills need to develop coordination, balance, timing, and more advanced skills such as ground contact time, stride length, stride frequency, and recovery mechanics. The primary methods to develop sprint mechanics include dynamic warm-up drills, acceleration training, and maximum velocity training. The focus on mechanics is not only during warm-up drills, but also during all running workouts. Detailed gait analysis of Bolt has revealed that he takes fewer steps, 41 versus 45, than his competitors, and maintains a slower step rate, 4.28 versus 4.54, despite slower limb movement on average. His above-average height of 1.96 meters and a weight of 96 kilograms gives him a significant stride advantage over his smaller rivals. Usain exhibits longer ground contact times, lower stiffness, more compliance, smaller stride rates, and similar vertical forces compared to Tyson Gay and Asafa Powell. Usain's sprinting superiority comes from his much greater stride lengths. Sprint training is crucial for athletes seeking to maximize their speed and performance on the track. Here are 3 key points to consider. 1. Use strength training to improve performance. Incorporating strength training exercises into your regimen can significantly enhance sprint performance. Building muscle strength, particularly in the legs and core, improves power output, acceleration, and overall running efficiency. 2. Coach proper mechanics during workouts. Coaching proper running mechanics during workouts is essential. Focusing on form, including posture, stride length, and arm movement, helps athletes run more efficiently and reduces the risk of injury. Drills that emphasize these mechanics can lead to significant improvements in speed and performance. 3. Design speed-based training before endurance. When designing a training program, prioritize speed-based training before endurance. High-intensity, short-distance sprints should be the focus early in the training cycle, as they develop the fast-twitch muscle fibers necessary for sprinting. Once a solid speed foundation is established, endurance can be gradually incorporated to improve overall athletic stamina without compromising speed. To be a great sprinter, the runner must master 4 phases of the race and train properly to develop maximum speed. Each phase of Usain Bolt's will be reviewed from his world record, followed by sprint training methods used to develop speed. Starting blocks. Usain Bolt's reaction time of 0.146 when he set the world record is average compared to leading sprinters. Bolt places his feet higher on the blocks and drives up at a 45 degree to get into a good drive position. Bolt can then start his large striding pattern, which is a huge mechanical advantage in the race. Bolt takes 4 to 5 fewer steps than other sprinters to cover the same distance. After 1 step, Bolt is at 8 miles per hour. At 8 steps, he is running at over 20 miles per hour, about 11 to 12 meters into the race. Here are some sample training methods. Acceleration phase. Bolt builds up speed, keeping his head down, driving forward, and slowly bring his body to an upright position at 30 meters. 30 meters is covered in 3.8 seconds. Bolt is running at 25 miles per hour with 15 steps taken in the race. Here are some sample training methods. Top-end speed. Usain Bolt's top-end speed of 27.62 miles per hour is at 70 meters, with 30 steps taken in 7.11 seconds. He is in full sprint mode, with long, powerful strides and his arms driving forcefully. Here are some sample training methods. Deceleration. Bolt stays at 27 miles per hour for most of the race, until he looks around the last few meters and his speed drops slightly. He dips below 27 miles per hour for the first time at 84 meters into the race on stride 36. He crosses the finish line at 9.58 seconds at 26.40 miles per hour on stride 41. Here are some sample training methods. Coach Mills's approach to distinguishing between the different race phases is tailored to the individual athlete. The athlete's own strengths and weaknesses determine the length of the different phases. For instance, the length of the drive phase depends on how much strength the athlete has to stay in the crouch position while developing maximum power. If the athlete does not have the strength to sustain the drive phase long enough, it has to be shortened so they can transition earlier. If the athlete's strengths and weaknesses, whether they are an explosive starter or have better top-end speed. For example, if you were to rigidly define the drive phase as 25 meters, you would encounter problems with athletes who vary. An athlete with good top-end speed can use a shorter drive phase because they develop top speed later and can maintain maximum velocity longer in the final third of the race compared to an explosive starter. Of course, If the athlete has deficiencies in various areas, you need to correct them while adjusting the race phases, but you cannot adapt them to a phase they are not capable of executing. Strength is one of the hallmarks in sprinting, and therefore it must be developed. However, Coach Mills believes that there are two types of strength: the static and the dynamic strength. I think athletes tend to depend too much on the static strength, and that dynamic strength is one of the greatest areas of deficiency in most runners. They are all bulked up and big and powerful from the weight room, but they neglect the dynamic strength. That is the strength developed in resistance training, plyometrics, and so on. We find with our sprinters that we get far better result when we almost have a 50-50 split between static and dynamic strength training. During intense training sessions, sprint technique can break down. One way to overcome the fatigue is to develop strength. A sprinter today looks more like a bodybuilder because of the need for force development in high-end sprinting. Coach Mills states, "Here we believe that the development of the hip flexor to coincide with the strong upper body and core. Improper body alignment resulted in slower performances and more injuries." Bolt uses a combination of plyometric training and weight training to build functional strength. A key feature of Bolt's training is lengthy 90-minute gym sessions 3 times a week that aimed to increase explosiveness and power. In addition to building core functional strength, Usain Bolt's workout plan includes a lot of flexibility training and sprint drills. Bolt trains in total for about 3 hours a day, but this is intensive training, followed by rest, massage, and relaxation to ensure full recovery before the next session. Usain Bolt's weight training program. He purports to generally do moderate to lightweight on weight training exercises for 2 sets. Here are the preparation period weight training exercises and during specific and competition period. Bolt did a lot of core work throughout his career to compensate for his weak back, which he says is a result of scoliosis suffered in childhood. Alongside these core and heavy load workouts, Bolt also performed drills about once a week during the winter to perfect his form. The first phase of the drills aimed at building explosive power, while the second focused on hip flexibility to lengthen his stride. The third phase focused on developing core strength. Here are the specifics of the 3 phases. Coach Glenn Mills mentioned that he felt that weights and sled work aided Usain's development as a sprinter tremendously over the years by increasing leg mass and leg strength. Usain's typical workout is sled drag by doing 3 sets of 10 repetitions. And that's a wrap on our deep dive into Usain Bolt's training program. We hope you found it as fascinating and inspiring as we did. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to give it a thumbs up. Don't forget to share it with your friends who might be interested in how the fastest man on Earth trains. And if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button and ring the bell so you never miss out on our latest content.